I just talked about backup integrity. We've seen folks where they thought they had a good backup, but they really didn't. So you might want to check that out. That's also useful for disaster recovery plans. So if you're doing backups for that and you have to go to a disaster plan, obviously you want to verify that you got good data, so that's another best practice. Your backup plan is really, I guess, up to you. It's to make sure that if you're doing a separate upgrade, that's probably the best backup plan I can kind of come up with. If you've got ALM 11, you're going to go to 1220. Your migration starts going south over the weekend. We don't know why. Maybe it's database corruption. Maybe it's file system permissions. Who knows what? You can at least go back to 11 and get your employees working again on Monday. Okay. They're not sitting there on their hands waiting for 1220 to come up and get the project upgraded so they can go to work. So that's the best backup plan, is to do it on separate hardware. Always suggest a test instance. Most of our big customers do this. They keep that test instance and they actually install patches on it. And then once that goes well, they go to the production and install the patch there. But in the realm of upgrading, this is perfect environment. Build out a test instance like 1220 and start playing with it. Find the bugs. Maybe there aren't any and you're just getting familiar with the product. That's a good place to do it in. Okay. You can also develop some of your own internal documentation. Maybe it's a subset of our entire user's guide. The user's guide can be really good 2 a.m. reading at times, so maybe you just want to focus on the testing aspects of the product. You could build out your own documentation using our guide and experience using a test instance. So there's a lot of benefits to having a test instance and keeping it running throughout the lifespan of that particular product version. Okay, so we're going to do the actual upgrade. Before we do the upgrade, and this is a big thing, I may actually hit upon this version control issue several times during this presentation, but you can't upgrade a project if items are checked out. That's as firm as the earth. So you have to evaluate what items are checked out of a version control enabled product or project. You have to run some queries. Is probably the best way. Most users, you can just send out an email and say, hey, make sure you got everything checked in, but that may not be as effective. And I'll kind of get into that here, which is where we often see, let's say a test is checked out for editing, and a user had that checked out. Well, let's say that user quit his job or for whatever reason left the company. That item's still checked out, and you as an administrator may have removed that user from the site administration. Well, guess what? The test they checked out is still checked out, and the only person that can check them in is them, and now they're gone from the site admin. So what do you got to do? You have to recreate the user and check that item, log in as that user, and check it in. That's really not feasible in an LDAP environment. So now it's a rock and a hard spot. You have to check in all your version control items before you can upgrade, but you can't upgrade because some of this stuff's checked out and it was an LDAP user, etc. Okay, I won't drone on about that, but it's difficult. We have tools and we have some talent. Open up a support ticket. I actually developed a tool that, for lack of better terms, I guess the closest thing it does is it does an undo checkout. Okay. It doesn't do a check-in by any stretch of the imagination functionally. Really, it aligns VC tables, so if even that's a problem, it'll fix those as well. And we're in the decision point right now whether we're going to make that public. Okay, it's had a great track record. A lot of customers have used it. We use it internally. It's just one of those things we've got to think about our support costs for that kind of thing. So I coded it. We'll just keep your eyes to the forum. I'll be posting something out there, probably give you progress updates within the next month or so. So that tool's out there that can check stuff in. If all VC items are checked in, but the issues exist, let's say on a verifier, it won't upgrade because there's records kind of orphaned out there about version control. This utility I speak of can clean those up. Okay, and it doesn't damage the data. Like I said, it does basically an undo checkout. Before upgrading a project to the new version, make sure you have a full backup. We've already talked about that. This is the support matrix. This is something you want to watch out for because if you're not on a supported environment, technically you're not supported. And we will try to help you in a lot of cases. We can get support exceptions from product management, that kind of thing. But look at this matrix. This URL is actually mentioned. I don't know. It's in the upgrade guide, upgrade best practices, installation guide. It's in the administration guide. It's all over the place. But use it. It shows you what platform OSs are supported by our product, the client OS that's supported, the database versions, that kind of thing. It gives you a full picture of what your environment should be. Best practices. There's online documentation on that as well. There's PDF guide on that. Look at it, read it. The installation guide, that's surprising. A lot of folks don't read it. I know our installation is usually pretty simple, but read it and understand it before you do it. Okay, the actual migration and upgrade, maybe you're coming from an old version. Let me tell you, if you're coming from, I'm dating myself here because Test Director 7.6 is what was alive when I started at Mercury. Obviously, it's been end of life for years. But in fact, we do have customers that are still sitting on that version and they're trying to get up to a supported version like ALM 12. They don't have a direct upgrade path. They're going to have to take, say, Test Director 7.6, 8, or 8.2. You can go to 9 or you can go to 9.2 with this product. Once you're at 9.2, you can go to 11. You can skip 10. I don't have 10 listed here. But once you're at ALM 11, you can go to any of the 3 supported versions, which are 11.5.2, 12.01, and 12.20. So that's for our folks out there that might be working on the dinosaur versions of our software. You do have a path forward, put it that way. Okay, we talked about version control. Now these queries, these are in the slide deck. This is a pretty well known set of queries that if you have a question on it, you know, you can post it in the chat. I guess there's going to be a chat here in this this presentation, but also in the HP forums. If you guys ever need these queries, just post it out there. I'll see it. I can give this to you. This basically covers who checked out what and how many of what. So how many requirements are checked out by John Doe, it'll tell you. And these queries are pretty useful. Okay, so we got it for all the modules where VC exists, and they can tell you what's checked out, and you can then alert those users and say, you know, check your stuff in. Okay, when you're upgrading from an older version, kind of back to that slide where I was at before, let's just actually go back to that. When you're upgrading that stuff, make sure that you're on, like ALM 11, the latest patch for that, the last patch was patch 19. If you're going from an older version, you're getting up to 11, and then you're going to jump to one of these 3 at the bottom, make sure that you get ALM 11 on high patch. I suggest patch 19 in this case, all right? There's verification on the verification tool, the upgrade, repair. Those are all based off some templates that are sitting in there, and they're patch upgradable, so you're going to have the most current verify, repair, and upgrade mechanism so that you can vet out database issues and allow you to get a smooth upgrade to ALM 11.5.2, 12.01, and 12.20. I'm going to be touching on that verify here in a moment, okay? But know that by being on that latest patch, you're going to have less of a chance of having a database issue, okay? So let's go back to where we were. Okay, extensions. Some of you guys out there might have been using some old extensions like MSTM. This is the old Mercury Service Test Management. It was a bolt-on with like 10, ALM 10, or QC10, ALM 11. You had this bolt-on thing. It actually would have to deploy it to the application. If you go through different upgrade paths, you got to remember to have that extension on there, and you may have to go through some pains to get it there. If it is painful for you, open up a support ticket. The engineers can navigate that with you. But know that with ALM 11.5.2 and higher, the extensions are included with the product. You don't have to run this extension tool to essentially bolt it into the application. It's already there. So that's really convenient when you get up to the current versions. That's obviously what I just mentioned. PPT and QTP assets, you have to use the asset upgrade tool. So if you're coming from QC9.2 and you're going to go to 11.5.2, once you get to 11, and you can do this on 11.5.2, you have to run the asset upgrade tool. I'm going to touch upon that at the end of the presentation, but it's a required step. It adds what's called ERI data, entity relationship information. That's where you have tests that have things like object repositories, function libraries, recovery scenarios, data grids, this kind of thing. Before we had ERI, this was kind of, sort of scattered around, really wasn't referenced very well. And you'd have users that could, say, run a QTP test without issue, where the guy sitting next to him couldn't run it at all. And that's because the CRI data was missing. There was nothing that actually wasn't even engineered yet. And so to alleviate that problem, we came up with ERI, and that's exactly what the asset upgrade tool does. It builds out referential integrity through the testing structure for a particular test. So it knows that, okay, component A, or this test has got these components are part of this app area, and this app area has those function libraries. And there's data in the table structure that aligns all that stuff so that it doesn't get lost, and it can be referenced by any user who tries to run the test. So I know that was a lot of lingo I might have just gave you, but bear with me. We'll kind of cover that asset upgrade tool here in a bit. Okay, make sure that repository over database, this was in QC 9 and 9.2, you got to bring it out of there. Okay, we got that tool is in QC 9.2, get up to the highest patch, which is 31, and then you can get that repository out of the database. That's where we used to use I think it was a blob, a binary large object to hold actual files. It was all in the database. We really didn't have a file system except for the dbid.xml. So not too many people used it in the first place, so let's just move on. Text search is recommended. Believe it or not, really doesn't put that much overhead on a database server, especially when the text search index is already built. We suggest doing this just because it's a great functionality to have in the product. If you have extra folders, files in the repository, you want to move those out. If you got a folder that says, Tim, and Tim had put some files in this folder and it's in the project's file repository, you want to move those out. This because we have a smart repository now. It reduces redundancies in the file system. If it sees that foreign folder called Tim and it's got a bunch of script files or something in it, it's not going to know what it is, and you're going to get errors. After the upgrade, when it goes through the smart repository migration, it'll say, hey, I got this folder that seems to be foreign. I don't know what to do with it. It's easy to navigate through that, but best practice, get rid of those folders. And also make sure your folders are called tests, not tests, if you notice the case here. Okay, there's an old bug in LLM 11. It was fixed in patch 7. I actually found it. If you have, by default, I guess the legacy name is tests, lowercase letters. If you somehow manipulated it in the past and you made it a capital T and you upgrade an ALM 11.50, 11.0 patch 6 or earlier, it's not going to put any of the tests in the repository because of that capitals there. Now it's fixed in patch 7 and higher. Okay, another reason why you'd always want to have the latest patch whenever you're going through a version to get up to 11.52 or higher. There's style sheets and templates. These are capitalized, and that's normal. Okay, so this kind of talks about the quick test tests, or UFT, well, not UFT tests, but specifically anything that was created with a version of QTP other than QTP 11. And this is where I was talking about ERI data, okay, entity relationship information. Once you upgrade a project to QC10, ALM 11 or 11.52, and if you've never ran the asset upgrade tool, you have to do so at that point. The other thing is that you can't do it with UFT installed at a client, okay? The asset upgrade tool uses both the OTA API, which is ALM, and the AOM, the Automation Object Model, which is the API for QTP, to build out this entity relationship information data. Because of that, you have to have QTP 11 installed. You have to have, obviously, I think QC10, ALM 11, or 11.52. And then you can run the asset upgrade tool. Also notice the version 2 is what I specified. Version 1 has a bug. But you have to run this. It's not optional. If you don't do it, you're going to have testing problems. Okay. Now, if you created tests with QTP 11 or higher, this being UFT 11 or 11.52, UFT 12.x, whatever it is, that ERI data is built into the data structure once those tests are created. Okay. So this is for earlier versions of QTP, like such as QTP 10 or earlier. All right. So if you created your test with that version and you haven't run the asset upgrade tool, you got to do it. All right. I'll do the little more on the asset upgrade tool at the end. All right. Here's the next piece, verify projects. Some folks do it, some folks don't. You should do it. It's a really good tool. It came about in QC10, and it's in the site administration piece. I actually suggest you do this on a regular basis, okay? Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly, perhaps even quarterly. Verify your projects and find out if there's anything wrong with them, okay? It's really a good way to make sure that your projects are in good shape. They're going to be upgrade ready if there's no problems found with the verify. It gives you detailed information about what could be wrong. Maybe it's permissions that actually got changed at the Oracle server, okay? With the Oracle database, it's got maybe a role or credential was missing. Or perhaps it's maybe a duplicate index. Maybe somebody was creating new data in ALM and the power went out and something sort of got written but not completely, and who knows what happened. You know, it could be a bug in the product. We'll submit to that. That happens. You can vet those out, all right? So I would suggest doing it on a periodic basis just for the simple health of your project, and this being outside of an actual upgrade, okay? This is an old database term with relative form. Corruption is pervasive through interaction. Some of the database guys may actually know what that means. It just basically means that if you have corruption in a database, if you use that database, it's going to spread. The corruption will go further. It's sort of like Ebola, okay? And it's not really, not trying to be funny because of the fact that this thing is going to go everywhere. If you have BPT corruption, you're going to find that it's going to go everywhere inside the project, and you're going to have all kinds of problems. Verify on a regular basis. It's going to alleviate that. You can sort those out, get them corrected, and that way they don't spread like the virus. All right. Provides a health check for the projects, keeps them smooth running. Reliability of this is way up there. Folks that do the verify, I can tell you from experience, they don't call us with as many database issues, if any. Okay, the ones that don't use it, it's a constant flood of tickets about database corruption. Right? See it every day. So that's why I really want to stick on this verify, repair, and up before you upgrade. Okay, now this really plays into your upgrade though to ALM 1220. I suggest you verify projects before you actually get there. You can have manual items that you may have to address. This might be a role or permission. It might be a foreign index. Who knows what? It could be any number of things. Most of the time, it's items that the repair tool will fix. As part of that, when we patch our product, there was actually an index that was added to the framework param table. These are parameters that are used for components. It was added to that table for performance reasons, and I actually think it came around in, I may be wrong in saying this, but I think it was ALM 11 patch 12 where we introduced that index. And so even though your projects may not have an issue, you've done a verify, if you've patched the product, I suggest trying to do a verify at some point, because we do build in new efficiencies in the project database structure that can then be added by simply doing a verify. It'll detect it's missing, and then the repair will add that index, and you'll be a little bit better in performance realm. This one, I've got an example, the more common one, where VC items like I talked about, they're checked out, you can't upgrade, boom, this is it, found checkouts in the project. If this is what happens to you when you're verifying an ALM 12.20, you're going to have to go back to the project, the source project, say in ALM 11, check in the items, and then pull the database back over to ALM 12.20 and give the upgrade again. So try to avoid that. Do your verify before you actually migrate step over to the new version. So verification, analysis of the project, it verifies the file system permissions as well. Okay, so if you don't have full permissions to that repository database, it's going to show it up. Okay, it's a manual repair, but at least you'll know about it. The detection of the environment, the configuration, the permissions, all that stuff, application data inconsistency in settings, it's going to find those problems, schema structure and database permissions. It investigates all these items. I talked about the schema, database schema structure may change because we've added an index for performance reasons. This coming about as a patch install. You know, maybe it's patch 14 for ALM 11 you installed. If you did a verifier, you're going to find, boom, that framework param index is now going to want to be added. So it's overall data integrity. You know, and it's basically our recommendations on how to handle issues proactively. In other words, it may detect that there's an issue with the database. It's really not impacting you at present, but at least you can get rid of that problem and move forward. And then automatic repair encountered issues. There's manuals, but it's usually always automatic in most cases. So on that, we're going to go through the upgrade of these projects. I'm just going to show you that in Robot. But one thing I might do is verify a project either by right-clicking, hit Maintain Project, Verify Project. Another favorite I like to do is just do it by domain. Now, I wouldn't want to repair or upgrade by domain in this space, but you can certainly verify. And you can verify while users are in there. It's non-intrusive because users may be banging away on it all they want. Verify doesn't deactivate the project. It simply looks at the structure. So this is another convenience of Verify. You can find out if you got a problem without interrupting your user base. And it's going through here. Obviously, there's a log that you can refer to and see it, but I usually look for red text when this is going on. I think we're looking through 5 projects right here. But yeah, so it's pretty simple stuff on the Verify. And then when it comes back, you want to see no problems found. That's the magic indicator. Okay. Now you can upgrade to a new version. Might be the ALM 1220. We're actually going to do that here in a minute. This is a report where it's manual, and this is because of a, let's see, it's going to automatic. Okay, it's a missing index. This is the requirement index. This is easily fixed. I probably demoed this just by dropping the index and running a Verify it found it. No problems found is what we did after I fixed it. The repair did it on its own. Manual repair. This is where we have extra columns, tables, views, data type mismatch. Had a customer one time that had an int that got changed to a decimal through a whole bunch of fields. I had to build out the queries to change that decimal. We had to kind of check some values and then bring it back to an int. That was not too painful, but it was one of those things that was a manual repair. The repair tool fixes missing tables, indexes, constraints. It will also, in some cases, display SQL commands which will be used to correct those problems. I don't suggest issuing those yourself. Let the tool do it. This is a manual repair item. It's an extra field within the bug table. You either have to drop this field or you got to build an exception file, and I'll cover how to do that. This is when it's an automatic repair. It's an index that's missing. Okay, an exception file, it's an XML file. You can use it to ignore fields, extra tables, extra indexes, oh gosh, triggers, all kinds of things. The upgrade exception file is defined. This is all outlined in the admin guide. It's pretty complex at points, but you place it somewhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the ALM repository that it should be. And that way you can access it. It finds this extra field. It looks like it's got an extra table called reports. You can keep that data, keep these fields, keep everything that you have that really doesn't belong inside the schema, and upgrade anyway. And that's by building out this exception file. This is in XML Notepad 2007. It's free from Microsoft. It's really nice to view this data, and the admin guide covers how to build out this data. Okay, these objects, that table missing, that means we want to miss it. So if we have a table called old stats, it doesn't like it, it'll ignore it, and then it'll do the upgrade. Okay. If there's syntax errors in this exception file, it's not going to work. I suggest using Microsoft XML Notepad in 2007. Again, it's free. I think there's a reference here at the end of the slide deck that talks about where you can get it from. Of course, you can Google it. The nice thing about that is that if you can't open in this XML Notepad, it's not going to be parsed inside ALM. If you can open it in the XML Notepad, you know you're good, and at least doesn't have a white space or some weird formatting problem that would stop you from using it, right? So look in the admin guide if you want more information on that XML exception file. Okay, when you run an upgrade on a project, it still goes through the verify and repair process if it finds issues. Now, it can only repair automatic items. If it's a manual repair, it can't touch them. Okay, I would recommend that during your upgrades, at least either in a test or a production environment, until you get your feet and learn how to run with this thing, keep your SA logs up on debug. That gives us a context if you have to open up a support ticket about what succeeded, where it was at before the failure occurred. You don't have to leave it on debug all the time. In fact, we kind of recommend you don't, because it won't overload the mechanism, but the mechanism doesn't have to work as hard if it's, say, warnings. Okay. If during an upgrade there's an error, network disconnect, DB not available, power outage for perhaps, it could leave it in a corrupted state. In most cases, you're going to have to revert back to the backups and start over again for that particular project when that particular outage occurred, okay? There's really not a way of getting around that. Trying to decrypt a database that had problems through some failure during upgrade, it's going to take more time for us to vet that out than it is to just start over and try it again. Once the upgrade is successful, the project can be activated and used. Okay, and for you folks that are actually using old legacy repositories, the smart repository migration process takes place, and it will indicate how far along things are in the migration to the smart repository. And you can view that from the site administration. You go to Tools, Repository Migration Status, and you'll see this. These are all fully migrated, but you'll see something. Maybe it says like 2%, 3%, 4%. That's the legacy repository going into the database, and the redundancy is removed. It reduces the size of the repository. While that's going on, you can access the project. Okay, know that. You don't have to leave users out of it. That's always a big question for folks that are coming from a legacy repository. It can be accessed. You can run tests. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't interfere with it. You can shut down ALM and then bring it back up again, and the smart repository migration process will pick up where it left off. Okay, pretty extensive testing on that, and a lot of different experiences with that, and it's really solid. I'm surprised by it because I had my doubts when they first came about with this structure, but it is proven to be really quite reliable. Robot, okay, our new guy. Now, I'm not sure how many folks have actually used this or even know about it, but we're going to demo it. I think it's really slick, providing you are in the right space to use it. Okay, I'm going to cover the installation, and then I'm going to show you how to use it. All right, so the user guide, it tells you how to use it, how to install it. It's pretty simple. It's a little tiny application. Be aware if an issue arises, robot. Now, this has kind of been toned down a bit. Let me kind of talk about this. Human beings don't like bad information, and we certainly don't like it when it comes in buckets. Okay, I think we've all been in that realm. We're all in the IT world. You get a lot of errors, and you kind of, well, I mean, I kind of freak out, right? So a robot actually started doing that. I mean, if you had one little thing wrong, you'd get all this bad data and would really, whoa, you didn't ever want to touch robot again because it was just bad juju. Well, they seem to have put a lot of verification in it. The latest version's really, really well made. The verification tools that they've put into it kind of eliminate this problem. Okay, and it actually says, well, when you do have something wrong, it gives you very accurate points on what to do, on how to fix it, where the old version would tell you just look at the log, and then you had to use your brain to figure out what was it trying to tell you. So it's really good now. We're going to see that. If you do get an error, it could still give you some bad information, but it's usually just one little tiny tweak that you got to do, and then boom, it's all cleaned up. Okay. The site administration has to be registered on the machine where the robot is used. In this case, we're going to be going up to ALM 1220. I've got that registered. I can kind of step you through that. We'll go through that stuff. And robot only runs on Windows. You can't install it on Linux. You can install it on the ALM server if it's using Windows. In fact, we have that on our ALM 1220 instance. But I'm going to show you it's going to be on this laptop that I'm presenting on. And fingers crossed it goes well. And if the server is using Windows Robot, it can be installed there. I mean, you can put it there, but and it's up to you. It's not unsupported. It's an option. We suggest leaving SA logs at debug when you're using Robot. Again, it can make big logs, but if you have a problem, we'll know about it. We can find out what went wrong. Okay, so prerequisites. It's pretty much the client. If you guys have seen the ALM client requirements, it's pretty much that. Okay, ALM, the .NET Framework 4 is used for the ALM client. Well, guess what? Same thing here. Only on a Windows operating system, not Apple, not Linux. It has to be on Windows. You got to have read-write permissions for the source and destination file server system machines. I'll show you that here. We'll get to it in a minute. admin rights on the database servers. Okay, and you have to configure the destination database before running ALM Robot, and I'm gonna kind of show you this. If you do not select the copy project, that functionality is actually not there anymore. Okay, so site admin components must be registered, and an SMTP service is optional. We use port 2525. I put in an enhancement request for the development team that created this. If you're not talking on SMTP on port 25, you're not going to be able to send out emails from Robot. Okay, so they're going to try to change that where we can specify a custom port for SMTP. And let's see here. I think yeah, the demo. All right, so let's roll into this. So this is the Robot. And what we're going to be coming from is this ALM 1152, and we're going to roll over to this instance here, which is ALM 1220. Okay, and I'm just going to go into the site administration. To kind of digress on that, just so you know, you have to register the SA client. Let's actually show you how to do that. You go to Tools, Client Registration, scroll to the very bottom, Register ALM Site Administration. Got that? We've already done it, so I'm not going to do it here, but that's how you do it. Whoops, this is one instance I got a password. What you have to do is create a robot domain, and you have to create a project called Robot Temp. It's going to use this project to upgrade your projects, okay? So these two elements have to be in there. That's the other requirement. The other requirement is that I have the database access. In this case, we're going to be using SQL today, although it would work fine with Oracle. We're going to use the SA user, password, root for this database. It's the same on both servers, actually. It's kind of how we do it in our lab. We're not very secure around here, but then again, these are temporary. So, but that has to be in place, all right? I'm going to go ahead and click on the upgrade wizard. I'm just going to show you some of the settings that we have. I'm going to go back, and we'll go to the very beginning. Do you have an ALM source instance up and running? Yes, we do. It happens to be this ALM 1152 instance. Okay. During the installation of ALM instance, did you create a new site admin schema? We did. If you had an upgraded one from, say, I don't know, ALM 1152, you could specify this option, upgraded from an existing. Saved aliases, this is just stuff that I've put in here previously. It's just saved settings. We're coming from our server called TM-ALM11.5x. This is the URL for that particular ALM instance. My username in ALM. I don't have a password on this instance, so I'm leaving it blank. We're going to be upgrading to ALM 1220, patch 1. This is the URL for that server. This is my username to get into that site administration, and this is my password, happens to be root. Repository. Okay, we're on a Windows file system with these guys, so you put in the instance alias, the host. We don't have a domain, so I specify the group and the administrator user. This is the administrator user in Windows. Everybody knows this is the unlimited account. Password is root. No, it's something else. I can't remember. It's root. Yeah, I think it is root. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Here's our new instance host. Same thing as above, but using the administrator user and the password. Next. Now, there's a lot of permutations in this. I can't go through all of them because there's a very bunch of them. So I'm just going to give you this overview using this configuration. We're going to enable the source project verify. It's going to verify before it tries to copy anything, all right? The other thing we've done is we've had to move the databases because the project copy thing doesn't happen anymore. We took the project databases from the ALM 1152 and we've restored them on the database that's used by ALM 1220. Okay, so that's in place. Notifications. I told you internally here at HP we use port 2525, which isn't possible inside this GUI, hence why I put in the enhancement to have these guys put it in. But if you're using port 25, you're good to go. You could put in your SMTP server, put in your recipients. As it upgrades, it's going to kick out emails to them. This is the validation tool, which was pretty much the golden egg in my opinion, because this I talked about the bad information quickly. This is where it eliminates that problem. So if you validate, it finds problems if they exist, and if it ran into one, it gives you these tips about what to do. And this is really nice. It used to just tell you, go look at the log. So really hats off to the guys that developed it for putting these kind of useful tools in here. Who wants to look at a log? Okay, here's the summary. We're going to be going from this source ALM 11.5.2 instance to this 12.20 instance. Notice we're going to do all 5 of these demo projects. So if I cruise over to ALM 12.20, let's go to the projects. Notice there's no demo domain, and there's obviously the projects underneath that don't exist, right? At least for now. I'm going to click Next. I confirm that I've created backup of all my projects. I've talked about backups before. It's your safety net. Make sure you do it. I'm going to select the demo. Okay, it's going to be all the 5 projects underneath it, and we are going to go ahead and copy the repository. And if I click on each one of these projects, I'm going to get details on them in the right window. Okay, see that? All right, now I'm going to go ahead and start my upgrade, and it does a final check. It's going to check the repository status, whether it's attached to a template, checks the project, checks the file access on the file systems for these servers, and it's going to make sure it can restore them. It's checking to make sure the database exists over on the destination server, and it cleared all of them. If you didn't have that, you would have gotten that kind of error I showed you before, and it gives you tips on what to do. So I'm going to go ahead and hit continue, and here's where ALM Robot shows its colors. It does all of it at once, basically. The first project at the top, Demo Large, it's actually got some fat in it. It's got a lot of test runs, it's got a lot of history, it's got a lot of attachments and tests, just a lot. It's kind of a bigger project that we have in our lab. The Demo Small, A through D, are really just kind of new projects with minimal data in them. Okay, I didn't want to give you guys big projects to look at because this can be like watching gray paint dry in the dark. But notice how it restored C. It copied the project C. It's restoring it now, and notice how the other ones are also going at the same time. Now we can see that project A is now copying. Project C is restoring. Projects D, B, and A are still being verified. So it's multi-threading. Right? It's moving all these guys out in concert. This could take a while, not an extremely long amount of time, but once the restore is complete, it's then going to upgrade those projects, and it can upgrade multiple projects at a time. It does keep a log of what occurs. Also, there's the SA logs at debug level. I currently have them at warnings because I know what's going on here. It's kind of a demo, right? But you could put those up to debug and capture everything you need. Looks like now the only guy we're waiting on now is B, and this copy on the large project is probably going to take the longest time. But it's restoring these 2 guys, and I'm just going to hover here for a little bit longer. We should see one of them pop over to upgrade here in a moment. Just a point to make that know that I did verify all those projects in 11.5.2. None of them have problems, okay? Once I've done that, I can be reasonably sure I'm going to have a successful upgrade to 12.20. At least your chances of having that are extremely high. Okay, so we got 3 guys working on upgrades. So we got 3 projects upgrading concurrently, 1 still restoring, and that large project is still copying. While that's kind of going on, let's go over to the 12.20. Let's refresh all our domains. Boom, there's the demo project. And it looks like we've got 3 projects showing up thus far. Looks like we're waiting for the project B. He'll be the next one to show up inside the GUI in the background here once he gets restored. And we'll be good. So while that's going on, I'm going to bounce down to the asset upgrade tool. So it's going to be kind of quick. Let's just run it from here. Okay, if automated test documents exist, this means an object repository, recovery scenario, data grid, functional libraries. They are used in your testing structure. It's really important to run the asset upgrade tool. Even if you're not sure, run it. Okay, make sure you're in the version tool, and there's some URLs following here on where you can download that version tool, the asset upgrade tool. You can't use it with UFT. QTP 11 or QTP 10 must be used. I suggest using QTP 11. Patch QTP to the latest patches if you can. You have to register the ALM client. You can use then the asset upgrade tool. If you have any questions on this, you can ask them. You can also put them in the forum. It's not used too much anymore because almost everybody's up at least on QC10 or higher. The assets, these are the test documents. These are tests, actions, components, application areas. Application areas, being comprised of, they're going to have recovery scenarios, data grids, functional libraries, that kind of thing. It can be executed while a smart repository is being migrated. Remember I told you about that. If you're coming from a legacy repository and that smart repository migration process is proceeding after the upgrade, users can access the project and you can run tests just as much as you can run the asset upgrade tool. You can do all that while it's in process. Sometimes that migration process can take days. That's why I mentioned this. You don't have to sit on your hands waiting for that to finish. Remember, this is a required process. Asset upgrade tool, if you've never ran it, you've got to run it. Okay? You can't run it with UFT. I think I just mentioned about that. I mentioned about the version 2, and this is where you get the version 2 of the asset upgrade tool. One thing I can tell you is the asset upgrade tool does have a report on analysis and upgrade. I suggest you save those if you go through them. Those can be our indicator on what went wrong, what needs to be fixed, if anything. And believe it or not, the asset upgrade tool does work pretty swiftly. It shouldn't take days, although it could. Let's go back to our upgrade. Let's go to our robot, and it's still working. So it could take a while, but this is robot, and once the upgrade, see the upgrade's done on C, we could view the log, and it basically shows us what happens down in the lower screen. It can tell us everything about what happened, a little bit cryptic like any log, but we go over to the project. Let's go to the demo small c. We'll go to it in ALM12, and if it's upgraded, it should allow me to activate it. Well, looks like it's not going to let me do that yet. Let me see. See, I think I got to refresh it. Hold on. There we go. Going to activate him. Just for grins, let's see how it did on the upgrade. We shouldn't come back with any problems if it did its job. So it not only copied the repository, it restored it, the project, and it upgraded the project. And as part of that upgrade, it should have upgraded correctly. If it didn't, no problems found. So I really love this tool. It's really nice. It's not for everybody, but it may help you if you have a lot of projects to migrate. So that is the conclusion. Again, come to Discover. Come visit me in there's the tech support booth. I think we're calling it the support zone. It's going to have a navy blue carpet. I'll be sitting at a table there. I'd love to meet anybody that'd like to come out there. If you have a technical issue, throw it at me. That's what I'm there for. And that's it. So let's move over to question and Q&A.
So thanks, Phil, for the presentation. There has been a number of questions that have come in. I've assigned them to you. So Phil, if you look at the questions area, you'll see the questions.
You might be able to type them, Bill.
I could. Do you see them?
If anybody has any questions, go ahead and try to type in the chat in this meeting.
No, it's not in the chat. It's in the question area. So if you look at questions, Phil, you should see a number of questions assigned to you.
Concerns, criticism, and compliments. So
do you see
let me know.
Do you see the questions? Do you see the questions, Phil, or not? If you look at the tab.
Come on, guys. I wasn't that thorough, was I?
Phil, are you there? Can you hear me? Phil, can you hear me? Phil, can you hear me?
Can't hear him.
Phil, can you hear me? Phil? Phil, can you hear me?
I can't hear him, but hold on.
Can you hear me?
My audio is apparently working.
Can you hear?
Bill, I can't hear you, but that doesn't mean you're not speaking.
Let me chat. Let me chat here. So I send out a chat. Phil, can you hear me? Phil, can you hear me? Can you look at the question chat? tab.
Back to in here, it should be question chat down there.
There's a question chat. That's where the questions are.
There you go. Yeah, chat.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make it bigger.
So you can't hear me?
Dedicated support engineer. So, okay, so apparently I can't hear anybody, but I guess you guys can hear me, so I apologize for that, given some technical problems. But yeah, we do have, a mechanism, or I guess the support facility to help you through an extended migration. That's kind of the role I'm in. If you have a lot of issues or updating a lot of projects and you're running into issues, and there's a lot of stuff going on, that's kind of the realm that I work in. There's other senior engineers that do the same, and we can certainly give you some help there. It just depends on, I guess first for us to help you have to have an HP support contract. I'll presume that most people do, but yeah, we do get engaged with one engineer for a particular product upgrade. That happens. A lot of big customers out there. There's some I've worked with where we've had in excess of 20 issues with upgrades, and I helped them through them all. Maybe it's just one issue, but if it's multiple, yeah. Hope I answered your question, but yeah, there is the facility to get a dedicated support engineer to help you through migration.
Phil, can you hear me? Can anyone hear me? Phil, can you look at the questions?
Okay, next question. What is required to upgrade from 12.01 to 12.20? Will it require updates similar to migration and from major updates? It's actually quite thin. If you've already gotten to ALM 11.5, well, 11.5.2, there's quite a few differences to 12. But going from 12.01 to 12.20 is really lightweight. It's a very, very lightweight upgrade process in respect to previous versions you may have gone through. Okay, so it's going to be a lot more painless for you. I hope I answered that question there. So yeah, you probably got a good smooth road ahead of you if you're on 12.01 and going to 12.20. What's the process? This next one, what is the best process to get licenses for the test environment? Here's what I can tell you. If you already got your license for the production environment, use it on your test environment, right? Everybody does it. I'm not sure if HP licensing likes that, but everybody does it. Put it that way. If it's test environment and you got to get up on your feet, do it that way. Here's the argument I placed there. You're still one person. One person can only do one amount of work, right? So if you're accessing production, yeah, you might be logged into test, but you're still only one guy. So I would argue that if somebody said that was wrong, use the same license that you're using production with your test instance. If there's questions about that, let licensing know or don't let them know, but either way, that can get you running. Okay, so it's better to start with a new site admin schema versus starting with a copy of a previous site admin schema. The answer is yes. I mean, there's some fat that can be in the legacy, not the legacy one, but the one that you have that exists. If you start with a new site administration schema while you're installing the product, it deploys and creates a new one, you lose that fat. But also know that we're aware of this, that yeah, your user data is not going to be migrated, but we have a tool for that. And it's really something you may have to consider. Yeah, best practice guide even says to do so, to create a new site admin database, but know that if you want to upgrade your legacy one, it's not a problem, okay? We'll help you with that if you run into issues. ALM version 10, or what we also call QC10 to ALM 1220. If you can get that product up, you can't go direct from QC10 to ALM 1220. You're going to have to pass through, you have to upgrade to ALM 11.5.2 or 12.01 before you can go into 1220. My suggestion would be if you're at QC10 or ALM 10, go to ALM 11.5.2, upgrading that version. The reason why, that's a mature product. It's got the patches. We're at patch 6 now. It's our highest. I would make sure that you had patch 6 installed. That's going to smooth your transition from 11.5.2 up to 12.20. Okay. Will the presentation be uploaded in the forum? Yes, it will be. The next question I don't understand, it says it's upgrade direct. If you're still on that, ask that question. Maybe type it another question. I can answer that for you. I'm not sure. Maybe that's a response to another question at any rate. That's all the questions I'm seeing in the forum right now. And unfortunately, I can't hear anybody. But if you have an opportunity to type a question, go ahead and do so.
Phil, can you hear me? Phil, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Still can't hear you, Bill.
That's weird. I hope that others can hear me, because I'm seeing, if you could still look at the question tab, Phil.
Yeah, I can see the questions.
Okay, great.
Okay, so we got some more in here. Will there be support for a new MSSQL 2014 and 11.5.2, and how will it be supported? Do we need an upgrade of all the projects? Okay, so that's really a question for product management. I'm not sure if we're going to be supporting a SQL 2014 in ALM 11.5.2. I'd actually have to look at the matrix to make sure that we can go to SQL 12, this being 2012. If it's not supported yet, I would suggest getting an enhancement request for that, asking for it. I'm willing to bet, based off precedent, that we may not support it, SQL 2014 and ALM 11.5.2. Just because 11.5.2 may actually be older. It is kind of older now. There's no end of life, but I would expect that if you want support for SQL 2014, you might want to upgrade to 12.01, ALM 12.01 or 12.20. Is there any limitation in the size of the projects that you can use for ALM Robot? Actually, the answer is no. The only limitations are on your file system resources, right? The ability to contain the database in the project repository. There's been some customers that have ran Robot, and they've let it run, gosh, well over a week, doing multiple projects, of course, but also projects where we have file repositories, smart repositories, in fact, that exceed the 300 gigabyte range, I think even higher than that in some cases. There's a question here that you're on, let's see, let me move this out a little bit. Trying to move my questions. It's a really slim interface here. Okay. Question: does the robot change the source in any way? Well, it's gonna upgrade the project. So, an answer to your question there, yes. I mean, it is doing an upgrade on it. If you're moving to new hardware, what is the purpose of another backup? Well, if something happens, Robot, remember, does an upgrade on the project. If the project upgrade fails, you're going to have to revert back to a backup in order to get it going again. You may have to try it through the ALM GUI rather than using Robot. And so in that case, you have to have a backup. Hope it answers that question. You just need to have one backup, put that way. If you're coming from 11.5.2 to 12.20, all you need is that backup of that project database schema and its file repository. Okay, next question. We're not on ALM 11. We're on 11 patch 16. ALM 11 patch 16, and they can't upgrade to 19. Will that impact your migration to ALM 12.01? No, I think you've got pretty up-to-date templates there. You will have to always do a repair when you go into 12.01 before you upgrade. Best suggestion there is like what I talked about, do a verify in 11.5.2 patch 16, then move yourself over to ALM 12.01, do a verify, repair as necessary, because I think there's some index changes and then you'll upgrade. Are there any limitations on projects using Robot? Not really. You know, just as long as you are providing the file system access, database access, you know, and you've got basically you can talk to both servers from your client machine. There's really not a limit on what you can do with Robot. It's very capable. It's designed to be able to handle very many projects of any size and get them migrated and upgraded. Okay, the thing was not designed with the limitation of project size in mind. We try to make it as capable as possible. And ALM 12 is mandatory SA database for project upgrade before it's not necessary. In ALM 12, I'm not sure that question. It says in ALM 12 is mandatory site admin database for projects upgrade. I'm not sure what that means. I mean, you have to have a site admin database for you to upgrade. You have to upgrade the site administration database too if you're moving it from an older version. Are there database issues going from ALM 11 to 12? A little bit subjective there. It just depends. Not really. I mean, you can go from 11 to 12. You can skip a version. You don't have to go to 11.52. Just know that you're going to have more repair items in 12.20 coming from 11. And there's a pretty lightweight still, but I don't think you're going to run into an issue. My suggestion there is to make sure that you got your ALM 11, get it on patch 14 or higher. Okay, because some database changes and there's refinements in the verification, repair, and upgrade tool in patch 14 or higher for ALM 11. When upgrading from 11.5.2 to 12.20, each running side by side on separate hardware, can we still upgrade the old-fashioned way? Absolutely. Absolutely. The old-fashioned way always works. In fact, that's how you do it when you get into problems. So if you want to do it that way, you most certainly can. But still, no, you still have to, I would suggest verify, do your repairs, that kind of stuff. Next question. ALM 12 is mandatory user SA database, ROL for projects upgrade. Before I can create a new user with only ROL specific. I don't have enough information to answer that. I'm sorry. A user with SA database, site admin database, ROL for projects upgrade. I'm not quite sure what that question means. Can Robot move projects from one server to new hardware and upgrade the new server, leaving the old source unchanged? Yes. In fact, why don't we look back on that? Let me move this thing out of here somehow. Hey, it's done. So the other thing that Robot's going to do, let me shrink this a little bit. Okay. Once it's done, you go to finish. You can look at the logs, but everything succeeded. You go to finish. See this remove button? You can remove these projects from ALM 11.5.2, the source instance, so that nobody messes with them. I'm going to skip it, but that kind of may weigh into the question that was just asked concerning. Let me get this thing stretched down here. Yes, robots free of charge. Okay. Robots free of charge. In the references, I got it down here. I think it's support forums. There's a link inside the slide deck which refers to where the robot is. You can download it. I'll put it in the forum, you guys, so go look out on the forum.
Phil, I don't know if you still can't hear me. But for others that are on the phone that can hear me, I want to thank Phil for his presentation today. Within the forums, we did record this session. However, we missed the 5 minutes due to some technical problems. I was able to fix the recording tool, and I've recorded after the first 5 minutes. So you'll have that recording will be in the post, and we'll also send an email to you with the recording. If you have additional questions for Phil regarding this presentation, then please go to the forum in the Quality Center Support Customer Forum and submit your questions there. We want to thank Phil for his time today. We want to thank you for your time today, and wish you a good evening, and hope to see you guys soon in the forum. Thanks, and have a nice day.